teenagers often rebel against their parents' way of life. What does it mean to rebel? Genesis 10 is divided into 3 sections. What are the 3 sections? Genesis 10 is divided into 3 sections. Each section is named after one of the sons of Noah. Verses 2 to 5 contain the descendants of Japheth, and includes 14 nations. Japheth is listed first, because they are the people furthest away from the people of Israel. They are on the fringes of the known world, to the north, and to the west. They dwelt in what we call Russia, Eastern Europe, Asia Minor, Greece and Cyprus. Scholars have summarized this as Indo-Europeans, the area of India, and the area of Europe. These are nations that didn't know Israel very well. They didn't have much connection with Israel. They are distant peoples of the earth. In verses 6 to 20, we have the descendants of Ham, which includes 30 nations. These are much closer to Israel, and are Israel's enemies. They are hostile towards Israel, and many of them have a powerful influence on Israel, usually for evil. They include the Canaanites, the Egyptians, the Philistines, the Hittites, the Amorites and other neighbors. And then in verses 21 to 31, we have the nations descended from Shem. 26 nations. They're called Semites. They include the Chaldeans, the Assyrians, the Persians, and of course, the Hebrews. The nations of Shem are mentioned last, because they are the most important nations for Israel. They are the focus of interest. Genesis will deal with the descendants of Shem from here on in. Any ideas as to why God included Genesis 10 in the Bible? Why is this chapter in the Bible? Well, Genesis 10 is here for a very simple reason. It's a transition chapter from the early ancient world, over into the world of the descendants of Shem. And then to focus, particularly on one man, and on his family, namely, Abraham. So before God takes his camera, as it were, and focuses and zooms in on Abraham and his family, God first gives us a table of the nations. So here in this chapter, God sets before us, a final time, the context of the whole of humanity, all the nations of the world. And he reminds us that all that is to come, the history of salvation, will be unfolded against this background. The nations of the world. After the flood, who was the first on earth to be a mighty man? Cush begot Nimrod. He began to be a mighty one on the earth. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. Therefore it is said, like Nimrod the mighty hunter before the Lord. And the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, Erech, Akkad and Calneh, in the land of Shinar. From that land he went to Assyria, and built Nineveh, Rehoboth, Calah, and Rison. Between Nineveh and Calah. That is the principal city. After the flood, who was the first on earth to be a mighty man? Nimrod is the first great tyrant and empire builder. His name in Hebrew means, "Let us rebel." Verse 8 says, he began to be a mighty one on the earth. It means he had to fight to gain a position of authority. Nimrod was a hunter of men. That's what the original word here means, a hunter of people. And we read in Assyrian inscriptions, that their kings hunted people. Nimrod was a cruel man. He established his power base by force. Verse 9 says that he did this, before the Lord. He killed people boldly, in open view of heaven. Knowing God would see. He was brazen. He was also a man of obvious influence. He built the kingdom of Babel, or Babylon. What will happen to men and nations that rebel against God? The wicked shall be turned into hell, and all the nations that forget God. What will happen to men and nations that rebel against God?